The world remembers General and statesman Colin Powell, who's died at the age of 84. Powell was the first African-American to serve as U.S. Secretary of State. Tributes have been pouring in. It's 7 in the morning in Singapore and 7 in the evening in Washington, where people from across the political divide have come together to mourn and remember the former U.S. Secretary of State, Colin Powell, who's died at the age of 84. He was a pioneer in both the U.S. military and the U.S. government, America's first black Secretary of State, first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and first black national security advisor. But his career will also be forever marked by one of the most consequential foreign policy decisions of this century, to invade Iraq and depose Saddam Hussein. Our North America editor, John Sopel, reports.
General Colin Powell, the very embodiment of the American dream, the first black Secretary of State, the first black leader of the US military. Yet he was born to Jamaican immigrants in Harlem and was lost as a teenager. Today, flags were lowered to half-staff and the tributes have been lavish.
He broke so many barriers, and those barriers were not easy to break by any stretch. But he did it with dignity, he did it with grace.
Until Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait in 1990, Colin Powell was relatively unknown. After it, he became a household name as America's first black commander of the US military. He developed the Powell Doctrine. Don't start a war unless you know how you're going to end it. In many ways, he was a reluctant warrior, having been injured during the Vietnam War. But if force is to be used, then let it be overwhelming.
Our strategy to go after this army is very, very simple. First, we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to kill it.
Having reached the top of the military, he'd now blaze a new trail, becoming America's most senior diplomat just before 9/11.
It is a great honor for me to submit the name to the United States Senate of Colin L. Powell as Secretary of State.
And at the UN, he made a case for the invasion of Iraq that he would later ruefully admit was based on incorrect information.
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction.
But for all that, this moderate Republican was being courted by both parties to run to become the country's first African-American president. Powell decided against, instead throwing his weight behind Democrat Barack Obama's bid for that place in history.
This morning, a great soldier, a great statesman, a great American has endorsed our campaign for change.
I'm so proud that I have had this chance to serve my nation.
This venerated soldier in later life used his ammunition sparingly, only intervening when he felt something needed saying, like earlier this year after the attempted insurrection at the Capitol, when he called for Donald Trump to stand down immediately.
I wish he would just do what Nixon did and that's step down. Somebody ought to go up there and tell him, it's over. Plane's waiting for you, you're out.
Colin Powell preached tolerance and moderation. He was a leader, warrior and statesman, and according to many of the tributes today, a genuine American hero.
The former U.S. Secretary of State, Colin Powell, key advisor to several presidents, who's died at the age of 84.